Regardless of whether or not you're a Sony fan, there's no denying that there is a narrative starting to form about the company. Ever since Jim Ryan has taken over, a lot of people have been saying that they are greedy. Paul Tassi over at Forbes actually just wrote a great article, and I've actually seen a few of these things popping up. Whether or not it's true, the narrative around Sony is becoming more and more negative, even as their console sells extremely well for the company. Let's talk about some of the points Paul makes, because I've talked about a lot of these on the channel, and I think people are starting to agree more and more. And that's not a good thing for Sony, PlayStation, or players at the end of the day. Let's dive right in. Thanks so much for joining me for these conversations. I hope you're having a wonderful day. If you like my content, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to know when it goes live. Now, I'm going to link to the full article in the description below, and I don't know why the page is formatted this way. It's just like, I need to find a zoom in tool that allows me to just zoom in on the part of the article that I want. But basically, Sony needs to watch the PS5 narrative taking shape. Paul goes on to talk about how Sony's selling well. He feels it's a little redundant to call a corporation greedy when, of course, a corporation's whole objective is to make as much revenue as possible. But with this recent story about the PlayStation 5 increasing their price, when Microsoft has confirmed that they have no plans to increase the price of their console, and Nintendo has confirmed that they have no plans to increase the price of their console, which I will probably do a separate video for. Sony remains the one person that has decided to change their prices. Now, a lot of people have linked me to the story about Xbox changing their price in India. Here's what I've discovered about that story. So Xbox back in June, I believe, changed the rupee price of the Xbox in India because the value of the dollar in India has plummeted over the last year quite significantly. I believe 6%. It has plummeted 6%. So that is one factor that Sony is taking into account, and that is one territory where Xbox has adjusted their price. One. And they adjusted it. So the dollar went down 6.5% is what I've read. They adjusted it 6% to sort of offset the change because it was initially priced below what the rupee was worth. So that's my understanding of what has happened in India, one territory. You compare that to the PlayStation 5 price. You can see they're adjusting in all these territories. So that is the big story. But let's talk about the narrative. That's what this video is about. The narrative that is forming around the PlayStation 5. First of all, and just off the top of my head, let's look at some of this stuff. All games are $10 more, regardless of the type of game, regardless of the length, regardless if it's a remaster or remake. Every game that launches on the PlayStation 5 is $10 more. Now it is a more expensive console to purchase in most territories. It's still quite expensive in the United States. It's very hard to get. And let's see what Paul ends up running down in his piece. So he talks about Sony announced they are raising the PS5 prices by about 10% in a whole lot of regions outside the US due to inflation and currency complications. They actually say that it's due to global economic environment, including high inflation rates. So while we're all getting hit with inflation, and all those people are being hit with inflation, Sony said, you know what? We're going to charge you more instead of eating the cost. And when Nintendo and Xbox come out and say, we're not going to do that, we're not going to pass along that cost for this period of time to our customers, Sony has said, we're going to do that. I've never seen, I cannot think of any other console that after 2 years on the market has increased in price. It is the first time I'm completely shocked that Sony would do this. It is just such a disastrous PR move on their part. I never thought the leader would be the one increasing their prices. But anyway, let's dive right in. Immediately, both Nintendo and Xbox, facing the same market conditions, have announced that they will not raise prices on their hardware. Sony has been the primary driving force behind trying to get the industry to accept an increase from $60 to $70 as the standard price for most new video games. This includes a huge range of games, from ones that might be able to make that case, God of War, and ones that can't, Godfall, which was $70. Most recently, Sony attracted controversy for selling The Last of Us Part 1 remake for $70, a remake of a 9-year-old game that has already been remastered once, and now this new version at $70 costs more than the original ever did. Then there are just the non-stop comparisons to Microsoft, which has offered all its games on Xbox Game Pass for free, for a subscription fee, right at launch as part of the service. Well, Sony has said that idea is financially untenable for them and their large-scale AAA games, which remain sold separately for that new $70 price. Well, Sony has started to release more games on PC, unlike Microsoft. They are attempting to sell that game twice on different platforms years later, rather than giving players a PC copy gratis at launch. And largely, those are the things that I've also taken issue with. I gave Xbox an incredibly hard time the whole Xbox One era, I would say. I was on them about their resolution. And Xbox fans memed me because I pointed out that the resolution was significantly lower on the base Xbox One versus the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 4 era, without a doubt, was PlayStation's heyday. They had amazing games. Xbox had a few, but PlayStation really hit it out of the park. And now we're here in the PlayStation 5 era, and it feels like the negative press is all going back towards Sony, even though they are making these excellent games. So let's continue on with Paul's article. There are, of course, counter arguments about what Sony is doing here, defending their position. All the Microsoft comparisons may need to factor in that Sony, while a big company with a $100 billion market cap, is not Microsoft with its $2 trillion market cap. So they can afford to eat a lot more cost when Sony can't. For game pricing, there's the eternal debate that game prices have been locked at $60 for ages now, well past what inflation, even before this recent hyperinflation spell, should have caused them to rise to already. And Sony's move is illogical. The counter argument there is that games have way more revenue streams than they used to, from DLC to microtransactions, and the industry is bigger and more profitable than ever. Paul's just writing all the stuff that I've been talking about for like the last year and a half on this channel, and that decision that consumers have to make, right? At the end of the day, are you going to pay that $10 extra? Do you feel that's a fair value? That's a decision only you can make as the consumer. I can talk about how I feel about it. I do not feel like Sony needs to charge that $10 extra. I do not feel like Sony needs to charge that extra fee for their consoles in several territories. That's how I feel personally. But at the end of the day, consumers are still going to buy PlayStation 5s. Like, nothing's going to happen with PlayStation 5s. That's going to it's going to continue selling like crazy. I just feel like when you're on top, when you're the king, maybe it would be kind of nice if you did nice things for your customers in the pricing reality that we're in right now. But more and more of these issues, but the more these issues come up, the more Sony keeps making pricing and policy moves that seem designed to pad their pockets and at the direct expense of their customers. When your product is in this much demand, you can do things like raise prices and still hit all your targets. But I do see a growing frustration among even Sony fans that things like this keep happening, and only exclusively within the PlayStation ecosystem, with Microsoft and Nintendo not taking similar action, whether that's on console or game pricing. Sony's goodwill may have a hard cap at some point here, and they should keep an eye on that. The PlayStation 3 era was not a good era for PlayStation because they didn't make a lot of money. However, they did design a phenomenal console, and they released and created a lot of the best franchises that people are begging for to this day. Infamous, Killzone, Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank, Ratchet and Clank and Sly Cooper were PS2 era, my bad. PS2, right? Anyway, I'm old. I can't remember when things came out. But there were a lot of games that came out within the PlayStation 3 era that was really Sony pushing the envelope because they had to do things differently than everybody else was doing. Meanwhile, Xbox was cranking along with 360. They were on top for a long time. But if you look at where both those consoles landed, PlayStation 3 actually ended up selling better than the Xbox 360. And I think that was probably one of the best generation of consoles in a long time. Xbox One versus PS4, it's no contest. Xbox One got absolutely creamed. PS4 was king. And now we're in the PlayStation 5 era where Xbox has really come out with excellent console options. They've come out with excellent services in terms of Xbox Game Pass. They've gotten rid of a lot of the legacy things like needing an Xbox Live subscription to play a lot of those online games. That's gone. They've fixed a lot of their issues, and they keep showing that they're doing more and more consumer-friendly things for the customer. Meanwhile, Sony has said, well, we're going to charge $10 more for our games. We're going to increase the price of our console. And they're going to pass along the cost as often as possible to their customers. And people are starting to say, hey, all right, like I'll give you the $10 thing, but these other things where you're charging twice on PC, I'm kind of getting tired of it. And I think Sony is going to eat through that goodwill if they continue down this path. Sure, it's profitable. It's working for them now, but long term, negative sentiment might take over. And when this Activision deal goes through and you're getting Call of Duty on Game Pass day one, and you're getting charged more for games on PlayStation, and PlayStation keeps doing so, like the console is going to be more expensive. The games are $10 more expensive. The subscription services aren't as good. People will start changing their console of choice because Sony has made the decision as a company to pass along costs to their customers. Well, when their customers start seeing that the grass is greener, pun intended, on the other side, and they can get basically most of the same good things on Xbox, especially the Call of Duty fans at least, they might start making different content decisions. Sony should be really careful about it. The console's more expensive, and yes, Spider-Man 2 is going to be amazing. I'm sure Wolverine's going to be amazing. But I think people are going to be waiting for those titles for a significant amount of time. So as the prices go up, sales might eventually slow once stock is finally there. I don't really have a point. It's just sort of an interesting conversation that PlayStation is doing a lot to hurt the goodwill that they built during the PlayStation 4 era. I want to see PlayStation succeed. I really don't like what I've seen from PlayStation this generation. The games have been phenomenal, but the main issues I've had are with the corporate decisions about pricing, about passing along costs to customers. And I hope that I've made that clear because, yeah, I mean, I make videos all the time about how much I love Returnal and how Spider-Man and Insomniac are probably some of the best creators in the industry right now. But let me know what you think about this. Does Sony need to keep an eye on this? Is this going to bite them in the butt if they continue down this path? I think so, and I'd love to hear what you think. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to know when my content goes live. I greatly appreciate you watching. If you want to become a member, memberships are turned on. You know what to do. You click that join button right at the bottom of the screen. And it's Saturday, so there's the join button. And just generally speaking, thank you for watching. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you soon.